Screw the intro, man. This is one of the worst days in DC sports history. The Washington Nationals have done it. They have traded away 23-year-old superstar, future Hall of Famer if he stays healthy, Juan Soto, to the San Diego Padres. And in return, the Nationals get left-handed pitcher Mackenzie Gore, outfielder Robert Hassel, shortstop CJ Abrams, outfielder James Wood, right-handed pitcher Harleen Susana. And we thought first baseman Eric Hosmer, but he, with his whole effectively no trade clause, declined being put into the trade and being sent to Washington. And now I just got the notification on my phone he is going to the Red Sox. It's one of the worst days in DC sports history, man. 23-year-old superstar that we traded away, not even entering his prime, especially baseball-wise, not entering his prime. And there's so much to say. I'll just start here. Scott Boras did it again. Anthony Rendon, Bryce Harper, now Juan Soto. All players that he represented. All players that, I kind of understand, obviously, where he's coming from. He's an agent. He wants to push for top dollar for his clients. But all players that ultimately left DC because we could not pay them, right? I also blame the learners. The stingiest owners I've ever seen. They don't want to pay any of their players. The only type of players they want to pay are their pitchers. And now we're on the hook with Strasburg's contract and Corbin's contract. Patrick Corbin? And I tweeted out yesterday saying it would be so DC sports for the Wizards to just have re-signed Bradley Beal, a guy that I know many fans out there did not want the Wizards to re-sign. Right? We wanted the Wizards to tank. He was not the type of player you give out all that money to. Right? I think it was like $250 million plus. No trade clause included. It would be so DC sports to re-sign one Bradley Beal and to not re-sign Juan Soto, even though they're in similar situations, but Juan Soto is the better player in his respective sport. He's going to be the better player in his respective sport. And is someone that most fans wanted to re-sign here in DC. And there's going to be some fans out there who'd be like, oh, we offered him a 15-year, $440 million contract extension. He rejected it. It was time to move on. It was time to rack up the assets, as many assets as we could get back in return, rather than letting him leave in free agency in 2.5 seasons. For the last time. While the $440 million 15-year contract seems like a big contract, especially to everyday folks like us, the average annual value was less than $30 million. In other words, we could have done better. We could have offered the $500 million that Juan Soto was likely seeking, but we decided not to do that and trade away a 23-year-old player for, I'll admit, these are some good prospects, right? You have a Mackenzie Gore. You have a shortstop, CJ Abrams, who were the number one overall prospects in the Padres farm system a couple years ago. You have Robert Hassel, who's the 21st overall prospect according to MLB.com right now. You have outfielder James Wood, second round pick last year, 6'7", 240 pounds. Okay. You have a right-handed pitcher, Harleen Susana, 18 years old, throws 100 miles per hour. These are some good players. But my mentality this whole time has been, you're trading away Juan Soto, a 23-year-old superstar in this league. Juan Soto, largely because you cannot pay him, right? Or you don't want to pay him. In return for all these players who you probably won't pay anyways. If not, trade away again for prospects in return and start this cycle all over again. That is the Washington Nationals right now. That has been the Washington Nationals the last 3 years. Yes, we won a World Series in 2019. But for us to move into one of the best organizations in all of MLB category, we need to win multiple championships. If not multiple championships, then not have a one-year wonder sort of season and then not do anything in the years after that. I know we pushed in all of our chips in 2019. I get it. Mike Rizzo made some savvy moves, acquiring some veteran players, some players that other teams didn't want, some players that ultimately performed really well for us. But we have done nothing since that point. We have traded away all of our players. All of us Nats fans were thinking, okay, all right, we'll give you this trade. We'll give you this Max Scherzer trade. We'll give you this Trey Turner trade, even though, he's a young player, and I hated to see how well he did in LA. I mean, obviously I was rooting for him, but it hurts to see him do well for another team. We sort of gave this Nats front office some leeway, right? Because eventually, it's okay. We'll re-sign Juan Soto. He's the franchise cornerstone. He's the guy that Mike Rizzo was talking about how, we have to re-sign him. He's the guy that we're going to build around. All this talk. And then Juan Soto ends up getting the same fate as a Bryce Harper, as an Anthony Rendon, as a Max Scherzer, as all these guys that came before him. Yes, our farm system went from 24th to, I believe, top 5, top 6 in MLB right now, according to some experts out there. Yes, maybe we might win some more games next season. But at the end of the day, with the way this front office has been, with the way Mike Rizzo has been, with the way, yes, the learners are going to be on their way out. We're going to have new owners. In my opinion, it just does not make sense to trade away a 23-year-old Juan Soto, a superstar player, right, for prospects that, in my opinion, they'll probably look to move anyways down the line. Especially if Mike Rizzo is still here. Especially if Scott Boras is still representing clients. Yes, he's up there in age. I think he's high 60s, if I'm not mistaken, age-wise. But he can still represent clients for years to come. So he probably will be a thorn in our side for years to come, much like he has been in the years past. A sad day. Sad day in DC sports history. We lost one of... If Juan Soto stayed here in DC, in my opinion, I've been saying this all along, he'd be one of the top 4 DC sports players, right? If you're considering the Mount Rushmore of DC sports in history. Like, sooner rather than later. And we traded him away. Not even yet entering his prime. This was a down season. A down season for Juan Soto. 246 batting average, 21 home runs, 46 RBIs. A down season for Juan Soto. Oh, and I know some people out there might be thinking, oh, Nazi, you're forgetting one thing. We also included Josh Bell in the trade. Now, that's what makes things worse for me. Sure, I think a lot of us were expecting Josh Bell to get traded. But to add him in to that trade, hitting 301, 14 home runs. I mean, he's not a superstar by any means, but he's a good player. We added him into that Juan Soto package to get all the players that I mentioned. I don't know, man. I know there's going to be some optimists out there who say, Nazi, don't be so down. We got some players back. We got some prospects back. We're building for the future. But honestly, with the way the Nats have been, right, in terms of their front office, ownership, whatever, in terms of how they've been towards retaining their own players, it wouldn't expect me if none of these players are here years down the line. One last point about this situation. Everybody was talking about how the Commanders should have retained Terry McLaurin, not just because of obviously what he brings to the table, right? What he brings to the field, but also because it would set a bad precedent. A bad precedent for future players, right? If one Terry McLaurin does not get re-signed with Commanders, what other player will get re-signed with Commanders? If a guy this talented doesn't get re-signed, if a guy with these kind of leadership abilities doesn't get re-signed, who else? That's also been integrated into my take about Juan Soto as well. If Juan Soto doesn't re-sign with the Washington Nationals, who will? Who will?